Welcome to Living in Beauty. It's Friday, October 7th, 2022, day 2272 on the road, and we're in Wilton, California, at Vinnie's North Bay Airstream Repair, fixing all the damage we incurred during our trip to Alaska, which should be no surprise. The Alaska Highway was born to be a military supply route, but it grew up to be a storyteller. This unforeseen attribute had us riveted from mile zero. Built for war, this 1,187-mile road opened to the public in 1948. Since then, driving to Alaska is a surefire, epical adventure for any traveler who is up for a dense narrative with buku twists and turns. Every overlander comes away with a unique, life-altering experience, but not always the one they intended. The North Country entropy is extreme and often results in dire consequences. Enter the random moose, wildfire, flood, flat tire, broken axle, shattered windshield, or medical emergency, and the journey takes a new course. Tow trucks transferring disabled vehicles over hundreds of miles to the nearest town, and a freshly stranded motorhome port side up down a steep rocky embankment alerted us early on that anything can happen. Our fondness for self-preservation put us on hyper alert, because around every dusty turn, a creeping zombie landslide might finish us off. But then, within moments of those nail-biting ravine crossings, we'd break into ecstatic reverie over the glorious landscapes and majestic creatures revealing themselves along the roadside. That's how it is in North Country. 1 minute is, oh my God, I'm going to die. And the next moment is, oh Lord, take me now. But there was no sharing this existential tug-of-war in real time, because internet connectivity was mostly non-existent. I couldn't text. In the last 15 minutes, we dodged falling rocks, saw a she-bear coaxing her 2 cubs down a tree, had to stop for a herd of bison and 40 rock sheep before a herd of caribou ran across the road toward a lake that appears to be a magic portal. Nope, every moment was ours alone, lost and vulnerable in a mystical land, separated from our former selves. Being technologically declawed for long stretches of time brought us closer together, closed that distance many couples reserve for the big stuff. We hugged often, for both comfort and warmth. The uncharacteristically cold, windy, and wet weather never abated. An early summer retreat south to a warmer climate was on the table until we heard about a major heat dome in the lower 48. Remaining on course seemed to be an offer we couldn't refuse. The wheel was in our hands, but the Alcan was captain. All we could do is hang on and pay attention. Every evening, after surviving a new episode in this wondrously wild frontier, we collapsed, exhausted from the road, eyes burning from daylight overload. The Alcan was built in an act of desperation. Originally conceived in 1920, but only seriously proposed after the World War II attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, the scars of that emotional year are more enduring than the permafrost. Maybe that's why the drive is half fantasy and half insanity. Frequent washouts, buckling, and the odd beaver dam collapse are some of the reasons why only 5% of Alaska visitors are road trippers. Built 17 years before Alaska became the 49th state and 75 years after the U.S. purchased Alaska from Russia in 1867 for $7.2 million, equivalent to about $153 million in today's U.S. dollars, road maintenance remains an impressive but complicated project. Every kilometer is an ongoing construction zone in various stages of completion. But I'm getting ahead of the story here. Before we merged onto the Alcan, we pulled out of Mackenzie, British Columbia, beneath a gorgeous bluebird sky, our innocent hopes soaring like a bevy of swan over a glimmering lake as we headed north through Peace Foothills. At midday, we arrived to Chetwynd, British Columbia. Every summer, Chetwynd sponsors the world's most prestigious chainsaw carving competition. Due to a planning blunder, we missed it by only a couple of days. Yet with no crowds and hundreds of award-winning chainsaw carvings on display, the advantage was ours. We found ample free parking in the middle of town, bought refreshments, and strolled along the Alcan in the warm midday, viewing the collection. Spending only 2 hours with the Academy Awards of chainsaw carving hardly cut it, but the road called. On to Dawson Creek, British Columbia, and Mile Zero of the world-famous Alaska Highway. Bursting with bright Alcan expectations, we settled into our campsite and took a stroll in the countryside. Presently, we came upon the Walter Wright Pioneer Village, an historical collection of buildings, artifacts, and stories of miners, farmers, and trappers who colonized the area before the Alaska Highway was built. The salvaged buildings are handily arranged in a Main Street fashion. A sudden downpour cut our old town trip short, so we ducked into a cozy pub for an excellent tasting. The next morning, we set out for Peace River, British Columbia, where we settled into a free campsite between an old World War II airport to rest and kill time before our Muncho Lake reservation in 2 days. The following day, we took a 110-mile detour off the Alcan on Highway 77 to the Northwest Territories. The wildlife viewing opportunities on this road rivaled the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. With no traffic, we drove as slowly as we liked, never stepping outside of the truck. We spotted bear, lynx, fox, bobcat, and a bison herd. The Cascadena people of Fort Liard were our hosts. First, we fueled up, and then settled into a gorgeous free camping spot on the shore of Hay Lake. While I took a paddle on the lake, Jim whipped up his classic Nisswa salad. The next morning, we returned to the Alcan and moved toward Muncho Lake, British Columbia. The drive to Muncho Lake was brutal. We were constantly queuing up for the pilot car to take us from one point to the next. Now, we get nervous when the fuel tank is below half. Just when we were about to panic, we saw this lodge where this sturdy little pump offered services while pulling off a damn good Don Rickles impersonation. While fueling up, we caught the fragrance of, what's that? Cinnamon rolls? Way out here, that's about as likely as a whiff of Chanel No. 5 wafting up from the surface of a Louisiana swamp. But it was true. Flying on a sugar high, we powered on at about 5 miles per hour, past a band of rock sheep attracted to minerals on the roadside. Then it wasn't long before we pulled into our home for 2 nights at Northern Rockies Lodge and RV Park on Muncho Lake. Jim reserved this site on what was once a beach. The unprecedented water rise prompted the local authorities to close down the park's dump services. If the water had been a few inches higher, or our rig a few inches longer, backing in and out of that site could have been a disaster. Fortunately, the rain subsided for a couple of days, and we enjoyed the beauty of the lake and the view of the surrounding northern Rockies. We pulled out of beautiful Muncho Lake with our black and gray tanks still full and in dire need of maintenance. But how could we find services in a flood zone? Just one teeny tiny cell signal would be so much help. But hey, what's the rush? The herd of bison seemed to say. Okay, by now, we're getting the message. Press on with patience. Eventually, we arrived to our next destination, Laird River Hot Springs in British Columbia. The natural thermal springs smoothed out the rough spots. Hey, who's afraid of that big bad road now? Not these old tourists soaking away our worries, where bears are a common hazard and may be feeding only 10 feet away from the pools. Okay, that concludes the British Columbia part of the Alcan. Maybe Yukon will be more tame. Pioneers. Oh, pioneers. Thank you for joining us at Living in Beauty. If you like this post and want to be notified when a new one is released, please enter your email address and click the follow button at the bottom of this page. For more info, check out our travel maps and facts. Okay, that's it for now. Safe and happy travels, and see you next time.